Hello, everyone.
Hello, everybody. Nobody's here. It's fine. It's all right. That is one thing I think we can aspire to in 2022 is to be a little bit more regular with the live show. Not even regular because we always do them eventually. It's just
Yeah, but
doing them
just
within an
on.
appropriate amount of time since the month has finished. Is the
Yeah.
issue. Because our book for December is quite chunky and the font is quite small. So I'm thinking like, oh god, is our like December live show gonna be like at the end of January?
Potentially.
Potentially.
Knowing us.
I mean, part of me is like, I just want it to be fun. Let's not stress about it. Let's just do it when we're free, when we want to do it. And the other part of me is like, if we're asking people to read along with us, we need to be a bit more reliable. But I think what I wanted to do was just at the beginning of next year, just have like the first 6 months planned so that if people
Yeah.
wanted to read the books for the months, they could still do so, regardless of what our live show was, that they wouldn't have to wait for our live show before reading the next month's book, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know what I think I'm just saying this to you pretty much, just waiting for people to
Yeah.
arrive. I feel like no one's here. But yeah, just a bit of housekeeping for next year. I think that we're gonna be a little bit more with it. And I'm excited to get into like
Yeah, New
the book.
Year's resolution.
Yeah, exactly. I've just realised with this behind me, it's like very evident that I'm not like sitting up straight. That I'm like very wonk.
Where
It's
do
my
you usually sit?
I usually sit in front of my bookcase because it's like a nicer background.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting in front of my bed because I'm on my bed, which is a dangerous game, as we have realised today. It's so funny. I promptly sent B the StreamYard. Yeah, that's what it's called. The StreamYard link, and within about 5 minutes of sending the link, I fell asleep. And poor B
I came onto the live stream with Anna just asleep, and I had to. She wouldn't wake up from my calls to her, so I had to try and like call her and hope that the sound of calling would wake
a situation you've been in multiple times before. Not on StreamYard,
not
just
on
in like,
stream, but yeah. Well,
to be
yeah, we're
fair,
both
like,
quite tired today and
yeah, I should
had a
explain myself.
busy
Um,
month and
yeah, I'm on like,
yeah.
what is it, hour 28 of no sleep. So I didn't sleep at all last night, and I woke up yesterday at 3, so I'm like very out of it. And I was saying to B before we started, like at any moment it could just drop off. So that'll be exciting if that happens, because I don't know if B has the power to end this broadcast. So if I fall
I
asleep,
don't think I do. I have the power
yeah,
to just leave, but
yeah, it'll just go on until I wake up, which
go on.
could be any time. Just be honest, in the next week. But yeah, so this is going to be quite a sleepy edition of Briar's book club, which I think kind of suits the mood. I think I said to you earlier that like the mood of today is like the last lesson of December term time, where like you're still sort of doing work, but you're playing Christmas songs in the classroom. Maybe you're wearing like a Christmas jumper. You're not really paying attention. It's kind of like you're getting stuff done, but like it's chill vibes, and you're looking forward to like getting out early. So, so
Yeah.
that's sort of the vibe we're going through, and like that's why we don't have our slides, which I'm a bit sad about because I do love our beautiful, beautiful slides, but they will return in the new year.
They will return. They will make a reappearance.
I also think, yeah, let's actually start mentioning the book now. This is the book. It would I genuinely wouldn't have known what to put on the slides for this book,
Yeah.
if I'm honest, because I started reading it, and usually whenever I read for this book club, we God, I'm like losing my words already. I take notes just because I try to be semi like organized. Um,
Yeah.
but
No, I didn't take any notes
this was just
either.
so fast paced, and I was like, oh, I'm like understanding everything. The language is quite easy. Like I don't need to take notes. And then around like the midway point, things started getting a bit more complicated. And I was like, "Fuck, I wish I had taken some notes
Yeah.
now."
No, there were some points where like I knew it was referring back to something earlier on, but I couldn't quite remember what like the person was called and stuff. And I was just like, no, I don't even know where to look.
Oh yay! Sylvie has joined. Sleepy vibes.
Oh yeah, it's very much sleepy vibes today.
Mhm.
Um,
Absolutely, we will be potentially asleep by the end of this. So that could be a nice group activity to do together. As
yeah.
a book club, communal sleep. Um, so yeah, for anyone who hasn't read it, welcome. You must be confused, maybe in the wrong place. But All Our Hidden Gifts is a YA novel by Caroline O'Donoghue, first in a trilogy, which helpfully I did not know before I read it.
Yeah, we didn't realise we were starting a series, but
Yeah, which seems like a bit more of a commitment than I wanted, if I'm honest with you. Anyway, so the first book, we meet Maeve, who is our main character, our main girl, and she is being punished. I can't remember what she did, but she's being punished for
she
something.
threw a shoe at a teacher, but it didn't hit the teacher.
See, this is why it's good to have both of us, because things I forget, you'll remember. And vice versa. So at the beginning of the novel, we meet Maeve and she's being punished, and so her punishment for throwing the shoe at a teacher is to clear out the chokey, which is this sort of basement at the bottom of the school, which they've named after the chokey in Matilda, because it's this dark, grimy place that's very unkempt and probably a bit dangerous. So she's clearing out all the stuff, and she sort of happens upon an old deck of tarot cards, these beautiful enigmatic, sort of alluring cards. The artwork is gorgeous. They have like a sort of energy to them. And she takes them home and, does what we always do, does a little bit of like Wikipedia, YouTube,
Yeah,
finds like a YouTuber who does witchcraft and it's like, ooh, I could
yeah.
do this. Which is like very teenage to me. I was like, yes, I feel this. It's kind of like that bit in Twilight where she's like Google's like
But she's just on, yeah. That always happened in Buffy too. It was always like, let's just search on the web.
We're so millennial. So then she, obviously gets a bit more into tarot. She starts reading up on, how to give tarot readings, what all the different cards mean. And she starts giving them to the girls at school. And this quickly becomes a phenomenon, as like things often do in like girls' schools. You're sort of like hopped up on whatever
Yeah,
energy
she's able to
is
read
there.
people very well and
Mhm.
handle it all very, because she's not very like academic and stuff. Is she? Like she struggles with school and struggles with like stuff, and it's the first thing that's kind of come really easily to her.
Mhm.
That she can just read people, and everyone wants a reading from her.
Yeah, and it becomes this sort of like people become quite like reliant on her and she gets quite drained with it. And then it becomes apparent that she has this ex best friend in school called Lily. And we're not entirely sure at the beginning of the novel what has actually happened between them, just that they were close and that they're not now, basically. And I can't remember, they're in the classroom and people are sort of like teasing Lily. They're like, "Oh, why don't you just come and have
Yeah,
a
because
reading
she's
or
the only
something?"
one who hasn't had like a reading in a year or something.
Yeah.
Um,
And Lily is really resistant, really doesn't want one. And then eventually it all comes to a head. Lily like reluctantly agrees. They have the reading, and then this card shows up, the housekeeper card, which is this sort of harrowing illustration of this witchy woman, and Maeve has no idea what it means. It's not come up in any of her research. And Lily is sort of pressing her, like, what does it mean? Because Lily really believes in all this stuff, and it really freaks her out that, you know, this sort of scary looking card has appeared. And then they sort of start to argue, and Maeve says, I wish you would just disappear. And then Lily storms off and then just doesn't return to school the next Monday.
Yeah.
And chaos ensues, basically. I think.
It turns out, I think on the Wednesday they officially know she's like disappeared or something. Yeah. Everyone hears.
And I think this is the section of the novel that I was, I think, the most gripped with.
Yeah.
This is the section that I read the quickest, and then I think the more sort of layers got added to the story, the slower I was with my momentum. Not that I wasn't enjoying it. I
feel like one thing, I feel like reading like the blurb and stuff, you kind of think it's going to be all about this kind of relationship between Maeve and Lily, but it's not really. It like is kind of at the start, but it's, you know, it's more about her kind of finding out that she has powers, and then there's all these kind of villains that kind of come into it. And I thought, you know, some of it was interesting, and I did like enjoy it, but I thought it was like a bit overcomplicated at times.
And I think maybe that would have been helped had we known it was a series, because when you're reading a book thinking it's one book, you're like, hang on, how is all of this going to be relevant? Whereas if I was reading it with the knowledge that there were more books, I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe they'll go into this more later. I don't have to remember it now. So I think that was maybe part of it as well, that we were reading it thinking it was just one book, being like, hang on, where's all this?
And also, I wanted it to be more like girls' school and like the friendship between them both, but it ends up kind of more being like a kind of love story. Which we can talk about.
I do agree with you. I do think that I wanted Lily and Maeve to be more at the forefront, and I guess the whole book, the whole thing is Maeve trying to get her back, but it's not necessarily because of how much she loves Lily. It's like because of guilt and panic, and like she's done something wrong.
I feel like I wish we got to know a bit more about their kind of friendship before it went downhill. Because we got the kind of reason why it went downhill, but like I feel like it would have been good to have some like flashbacks and stuff to like get us more engaged in their like friendship. So
you're more desperate like when Lily goes. And also what I really enjoy, well, I say I really enjoy, but it wasn't that present, but I really like this sort of haphazard feel to Maeve's family, because what I really like in a lot of YA is when the parents and family are present, because I think you find in a lot of YA it's like, I'm just gonna go do what I want, and you're just like, where are your parents? Like, you know, what's going on? So I always really appreciate it in a YA novel where like the parents are like very present, and the second that like you're home late, your parents are like, what's going on with you? Like, what is happening? And so I enjoyed that, and Maeve has like 5 older siblings. She's got like a bunch, and a lot of them are quite a bit older than her, so she's sort of not very close with them. And I quite enjoyed that like sort of family dynamic where like her immediate older sister sort of acts like a third parent, and there's a bit where, you know, Maeve's parents are away on holiday and her older sister is sort of taking care of her, and that's when Lily's goes missing, and the older sister has to kind of step in and like try and deal with it. I thought that was done quite nicely, but again, like you said, I kind of wanted a bit more of like the family and a bit more of like the sort of personal relationships. But I mean, there is enough there to like keep you invested, and hopefully maybe the stuff that we're like hankering for, like the flashbacks and the detail, maybe come down the line in like later books. How much did you know about like tarot going into the book?
Not much really at all. Yeah, so I know that I read just like from the back that I think the housekeeper thing was like from like a song that
Yeah,
the author did or something. So I don't know how much the mythology of, you know, because it goes into how like the
yeah,
kind
I
of
think that
mythology of
part
it
is
is
a lot.
appears in different
Yeah.
cultures and stuff, and I'm not sure how much, you know, that's a real thing.
I mean, maybe it's sort of like, you know, the woman in black, like La Llorona, like every sort of
Yeah,
culture has like a ghostly woman figure.
yeah,
Um, and if it's not directly that, maybe she's taken inspiration from that, like
mm,
this sort of fallen woman figure.
mm,
Um, because I was really sort of captivated by that, and I wanted more of her as well, because there is like a sort of confrontation towards the end where, you know, Maeve like has to confront this housekeeper to like get Lily back, and I sort of was
mm,
like, what's the beef here? Like, why
yeah,
why was Lily taken? And like
yeah,
why this specific card? You know what I don't know, like I just feel like
yeah.
we got answers, but I'm also like,
It was something they explained it like it's because both at the same time when they had the reading,
mhm,
one was like Lily was like, I want to make the wish like, oh, I wish I could disappear, and
yeah,
then Maeve wished that Lily could disappear. But
yeah, it
then
was
that doesn't quite make
mhm,
sense to me because the housekeeper card showed up previously.
more just like in the deck.
Like, yeah, no, remember she knew of the housekeeper card, but
Yeah, 'cause
tried
she
to
Googled it.
research it
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
didn't find anything. And then it kind of like came up once, and then it came up again with Lily. But I'm not really sure why it came up in the first place, if that makes sense.
Mm, yeah.
Um, oh,
Mm.
that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
looking forward to that. Ah! Leanna's here! Oh, Leanne has COVID for a second time. Can you imagine?
Oh gosh. Yeah, no, we were talking about how this live stream is going to be really, you know,
Chill.
chill and, you know, just yeah, just a chill time because we're all kind of a bit,
It's like last day of term vibes in here, and we're just
yeah.
sleepy.
Yeah, poor Anna sent the link to the live stream and I opened it and she was asleep, bless her. So
We're sorry, Caroline. We should be doing your book more justice. We enjoyed it, but we're just gonna talk about
yeah.
it in a much more chill way without the slides this time. But yeah, no, I thought what was really interesting, like we keep talking about it very disparately because obviously we've not really got a structure with our slides. Um, but what I found interesting about like the whole tarot element was that like I just think it's such a teenage thing to sort of try
Yeah.
and have some sort of element of control or like, um, you know, there's sort of a lure to like having this sort of um like prophecy making ability.
Yeah.
And I really liked the parallel. Obviously, later on in like the last act, you find out that there was this other girl who existed like years and years ago,
Yeah.
Heather. Was
Yeah.
that her name? Who was
Heaven and
also, like, a
yeah.
very politically aware and, like, activist teen who cared very deeply about things, and I really liked that sort of idea of, like, um, the sort of emotional temperament being a factor.
Yeah.
So when Maeve starts doing the tarot, she finds it quite draining, and then she visits her local sort of witch shop, and the shopkeeper there is saying to her like, "Oh, you need this crystal and these things to sort of replenish your energy, and you need to be really careful about how many people's problems that you take on, and all of this stuff." Um, and I don't know, I just find that really interesting. It's kinda like when you go back to, like, medieval times and it's like the 4 humors in the body, it's, like, all about balance, and that is sort of a core theme throughout the novel as well, is that, you know, this housekeeper thing, Lily going missing, has tipped the energy, and then this weird cult shows up because they're drawn by,
Yeah.
like, the
Drawn
energy
to the
or something.
energy, yeah.
Yeah. But I quite like that sort of the landscape is, like, emulating how Maeve is feeling. And
Yeah.
obviously, like, being a teenager is a turbulent enough time anyway,
Yeah.
but then to have, like, more power over, like, what goes on around you is just quite a compelling idea, I feel. I think it lends
Mm.
itself quite well to, like, the teenage,
Teenage experience.
age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose also like being, at that time you're kind of obviously like finding yourself, and
Mm.
it's quite empowering for like Maeve to kind of like, because obviously like the kind of background is that, that it's set in, Ireland, and, there's obviously a lot of history with, kind of religion, and,
Mhm.
uh, you know, and she kind of says how like at this point it's kind of like they all kind of grow up kind of Catholic without having a kind of say in it, and
Yeah.
without really knowing like the meanings of things, and so, well, that's how she feels anyway, and I guess it's quite like an empowering thing that she's found a kind of spiritual kind of
Mm.
journey,
And
that's
also one
for
that I
her.
guess was a little bit against what she was raised in, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, because
Yeah, I
also
mean, you meet Catholics or, like, people that were, like, heavily religious growing up, and they're always like, "Yeah, I wasn't allowed to read Harry Potter, and because it's
yeah,
witchcraft," you know?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly, and obviously, like the cult that comes into it is kind of
Yeah,
taking
can we talk about this
the
cult for a second? Because
they're, yeah, they're
I
kind of
never
taking
really.
Catholic views to the extreme, and
Yeah, because it was. I
anti-abortion,
just. Yeah, I just got, like,
anti-LGBT.
major Tory vibes, but maybe that's just 'cause I'm, like, very anti-Tory.
Yeah,
Um, so, like, yeah, this cult called the Children of Brigid show
British.
up. And I actually don't know. I didn't look up what that means. If that's like a real thing.
Well, Bridget
Yeah.
is, you know, um, it's in, um, it's in like one of the kind of mythologies, or
Right, I'm doing a quick
she's
Google.
a,
We're so
a
professional.
bit like how there's, isn't it a bit like how there's Greek gods and stuff? It's like a
Oh,
Celtic thing, or I'm not sure though. I could be getting mixed up.
okay. So
As
I've
you
just
said, this.
googled Children of Brigid, and what's come up is Brigid of Kildare, and then oh god, Leanne's gonna make fun of me for mispronouncing Irish stuff. And then it says Tigernach of Clones, and then it says this person was an early Irish saint, patron saint of clones in the province of Ulster. I don't know if that
Yeah, it says with,
is it Bridget?
is it? No, it's Brit. They say
Brigid.
Bridget, Brigid, but it says
Mm.
it's Brigid is a goddess of pre-Christian Ireland. She appears in Irish
Oh,
mythology as a member of the something I can't pronounce.
God.
Um, she's associated with wisdom, poetry, healing, protection, blacksmithing, and domesticated animals.
Right, hang on, Leanne, I'm gonna share my screen so you can see what I tried to say. This one, that's what I tried to say. The T word. Oh my god. I'm from Scotland. I should have some knowledge of, like, Celtic pronunciation, but I just don't.
This is Brigid.
There she is, the real MVP. Okay, so is this, like, we think this cult is hailing from this sort of traditional, like,
Well, it's,
history.
kind of that very right wing kind of,
Mm,
version of Catholic kind of beliefs, where
mm,
you're kind of, well, they say, oh, you've got to take every word as it is, but it's often
right.
is actually very nitpicky and very just
Yeah.
anti
What I find
um
interesting as well is, like,
people.
because I've just read, like, literally just read, Scenes of a Graphic Nature, which is Karen O'Donoghue's other book.
Mm.
But it's an adult book, and it very much has very similar themes, like, scarily close to, like, me, because the main
Mm.
character is a film graduate, and she makes a film about her dad's Irish roots, but she feels quite disconnected to her roots because she
Yeah.
wasn't born in Ireland. And then she's made this film, and her best friend has made it with her, but her best friend is, like, a lot more successful in the film industry than she is. And then they both go back to Ireland to sort of screen this film.
Mm.
And the film is about this experience that her dad had as a child, where he was the sole survivor of an explosion in a school that, like,
Mm.
devastated this small town. So they go back to this small town to sort of, get in touch with her heritage a little bit. And her father is dying of cancer, so that's another thing. It's like a time sensitive thing. She wants to connect with him and, like, his heritage. Um, and so much of it is about, like, the sort of the darkness of that period of history, like the
Yeah.
religiousness of Ireland in that time, and the things that get covered up, and, like, what people are kind of pushed to do, and the sort of small town mentality that I think not only exists in Ireland, but, like, in a lot of small rural towns where, they don't welcome outsiders, and people sort of, keep their secrets. But it's really, really compelling, and I think I can definitely now, having read Scenes of a Graphic Nature and then coming back to talk about this, I
Mm.
definitely see similar threads that she's
Mm.
exploring in both, but obviously in different contexts. But
Yeah.
I can definitely sort of see that, and I recommend Scenes of a Graphic Nature as well, because I think you'll enjoy it. It's about, like, film and um
Yeah.
small town mystery. But I found that one a bit more, I think, compelling. Like, I finished that, like, in 2 sittings because it was just very readable. I think it had a little bit less, but which makes sense because I think that's a standalone novel, and this is, like,
Mm.
the first in a series of 3 books. So this is obviously setting up a lot of stuff that will hopefully get
Yeah.
paid off later. Um, yeah.
Mm.
Ooh, went on a bit of a tangent there. But yeah, so this main guy, Aaron, who's, like, the cover. I don't know why, but I think maybe because his name was Aaron and it begins with an A, but I, like, in my head, pictured him as, like, the guy from Disney Channel, from, Austin and Ally, the blonde guy who's also in Sabrina. Ross Lynch, because I think he's described in the book, the character has, like, blonde hair, and I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so
But
I don't really know what his motivations are. I guess that will become clear,
well,
but he
he's
just
kind
is
of
very.
like, enjoys being kind of having power on, over a lot of people. He's kind of like a cult leader and is kind of exploiting
Yeah,
vulnerable people. They're all really young, and that's what's
yeah,
kind of they say is like strange because they've all got like very right wing views, which is
yeah.
obviously less
And
common in
that's
younger
what I
people.
found really interesting, because that
Um,
is something that I have grappled with, like, very recently, like, going to uni and thinking, "Oh, this is like an arts university, like, everyone's gonna be pro," and then you come across people that are, like, not not liberal or in the slightest, and it is quite shocking because I think you very much fall into that mindset of, like, "Oh, all people suck and they're all gonna die, and then we don't have to deal with racism anymore." Not the case, you know?
yeah.
And I think for that to be dealt with in YA specifically is really, really cool, because you know, obviously the target audience is, you know, young people, teenagers. And like the earlier you have that realization that like people around you can be the problem, you know, and you have sort of potentially power to like change that is quite like important. I think I really sort of I liked that element, and I'm excited to see where that goes down the line.
And also to like show that it's, you know, the whole that whole kind of viewpoint comes with a lot of kind of exploitation and, you know, taking advantage of the people who support it as well. You know, I mean, that happens, you know, all the time with the Tories and stuff as well. It's, you know, a lot of people vote for, you know, a Conservative government because, you know, they think they're going to be better off, and then they only care about, you know, the super rich.
Yeah.
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 That's...
And yeah, so this sort of cult is introduced, and the explanation that we get is that Lily disappearing sort of throws off the energy in the town, and this sort of seismic shift was enough to sort of attract this cult, and they think they can capitalize off of this sort of like change in the air. You know, the river is running warm, and like strange things are happening to like the nature around the town. And then eventually at the end of the book, when we do get Lily back, things don't suddenly just click back into place the way it was before. And I think Maeve is quite upset by obviously, because she went through hell and back to get Lily, and thinks that, you know, once she's got her, everything will be fine again. But actually, she's sort of opened a can of worms that is a lot bigger than she initially thought, and will be dealing with the repercussions of that, you know, after Lily's back. And I hope that, you know, Lily will have a role in that as well, you know.
And we kind of, you know, why they kind of start researching the cult is because they wonder whether at the start Lily's brother Ro wonders whether she could have been, you know, because there's lots of children that have kind of gone missing and run to this cult, and, you know, he kind of wonders, is that what happened to Lily? And they go to one of the meetings, and they're like, she wouldn't, you know, she wouldn't fall for this. And, you know, that's when they kind of, Maeve kind of starts being more honest to Ro about what happened with the tarot cards and stuff, and that there's, you know, some kind of magical reason for her disappearance.
What did we think? Oh, carry on.
Oh, yeah, you carry on.
You carry on.
I was gonna say there's quite a lot of, you know, subjects that kind of come up in it. It's quite a hard, I feel like it's a hard book to kind of structure into a discussion, because there's a lot.
Well, I think I was gonna ask just then, you know, what did we think of Ro? Because you brought up the character of Ro, who is Lily's older brother, but also the love interest to Maeve. And also the sort of center of the other part of the novel, which is a sort of LGBT sort of activism and, you know, diversity in teenagers. And I really enjoyed that whole section. And I think initially, even before Lily goes missing, there's a nice scene with Maeve and well, at that time, Rory on the bus, where he asks her to call him Ro. That's his preferred name, and, you know, he paints his nails, and, you know, he gets kind of teased by the other like boys in school, and you know, I think that element of the story was really nice, and I quite like, because at the time I was like, okay, how is this, you know, going to be relevant? And, you know, they go to Ro's gig because he's in a band, and, you know, like the cult shows up at this gig, and then like there's drama because he gets violent. And at first I'm like, oh, how is this relevant? But I quite liked that in the midst of all this magical mystical stuff, there are people also still trying to just be teenagers and be themselves. Like, and that is the struggle of like being a teenager, is like expressing yourself in a realistic way and like figuring out who you are and what you want and like who you're attracted to, all of that good stuff that happens when you're a teen. And I quite liked that that was just trying to carry on with these like extraordinary circumstances. And also that they're sort of linked as well, because obviously the Children of Brigid is the weird cult, but they also oppose LGBT stuff. So it's like it's all connected a little bit, but it still felt a little bit sort of separate. But yeah.
No, I thought that I mean, one scene that really stood out for me was like after the gig, and you know, Rose kind of goes, you know, he's like, how am I supposed to like live the rest of my life? And it's just, I feel like that's such like, you know, one has moments like that as you know, being part of LGBT, you know, community, and
like, is it always going to be this hard? Yeah. Hello from India. It's incredible. Thank you for joining us all the way from India. That's amazing. I'm a bit shook by that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
We're
yeah.
international.
Huh?
We're international.
We are.
Yeah.
And also, it's a really small thing, but I really liked that Ro had a preferred name and was sort of experimenting with like gender fluidity, you know, wore a dress on stage, but also was still comfortable with kind of he, him pronouns. And I really liked that like he was maybe still in a stage of like figuring it out. Like it wasn't like, by the way, this is my name,
like,
I'm changing my pronouns to like they that. Like it was very much like, no, I can wear a dress and still identifies as a man. And I quite liked that, because I feel like there's not a lot of LGBT rep where you're sort of in the middle and it's like, well, I don't quite know yet, but like this is something I'm trying out and this is potentially who I am, but we, you know, and I really liked that element of it. Because I think, yeah, for so many LGBT YA books, it's like, okay, this has like a male and male relationship, or this has a lesbian, or this has a ace relationship, and they're all sort of like defined roles, and obviously we need that. But I also really like it when there are characters that are like, I don't actually know what my label is, but here's what I think, and here's what I feel, and here's what I'm confused about, you know, because I feel like that is a lot more like real, and not more real, but it's like just comforting, you know, like to sort of not have it all figured out yet. That was my little soapbox thing. Yeah. And also there's the other element of Rose's character being Lily's older brother, and like him trying to get her back, obviously, because it, you know, is deeply affecting him and his family. And am I making this up? Do they all get some sort of
they all get some sort of power, but I was a bit confused with Rose's power. It was like he can fix things or something, but it wasn't like, because there was like, I think Lily got like electricity, and Fiona got healing, which are all both quite like ones you're kind of familiar with, but it was a bit like vague on what Rose. It was like fixing things or something,
or like breaking into locks or something. I remember that he like broke
but
something.
Yeah.
Or like metal.
Yeah.
Does it say?
I was a bit confused by that, to be honest.
And then yeah, Maeve's just her like mind reading.
Yeah, I think so. Or like, yeah, being able to read people and get into their head. Which is what Aaron's is too, isn't it? The cult
yeah.
leader person. I wonder if more of the cult people in the cult are going to get more powers to balance it.
Maybe.
Mm.
Yeah, and I wonder if the housekeeper plays a role at all in the rest of the series, or if like she's kind of done her bit and now she's returned Lily.
I feel like that was a slight letdown because she was kind of built up and then it ended up she was just kind of a prop in the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She was kind of like could either go bring power
I
to
feel
either side.
like she was defeated quite easily, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
You know, there was that whole like, you know, she did a bit of Googling, she bought a few candles and a bit of fabric. She did stab herself. Like let's not diminish the sacrifice that was made.
Ro did
But
too.
And Ro, and I feel
but
like
I was like, you know, at the end when like Maeve had like, you know, obviously stabbed herself and like she like went into school like the next Wednesday or something. I was like, I swear, like
I would have milked that for like a month.
Yeah, exactly.
You would not catch me in school after any of that. Nope.
But I was just a bit like that's, and also like I understand that they were like, oh, like Fiona's really good at like getting people to like believe her, but her explanation for like what happened was just like, oh, it was just like an accident. When did she like?
Did you say they were rehearsing like Othello?
Yeah.
Which, like, the final scene in Othello does have a knife in it. Like it's potentially plausible, but
for
also
like
you would have
both
been
of
so
them,
dumb to do that.
For like two people to like accidentally stab themselves is quite like impressive.
Yeah.
That was the one thing where I was like, what? But I feel like that would be so like our like the school that we went to that they'd be like, yeah, come back on Wednesday.
Yeah, they'd just be so willing to believe the thing that is like the least weird. You know, they're like, we don't want to believe that you have any mental health issues or anything complex going on. Let's just pretend that you were rehearsing a play. Like that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like it sort of helped a little bit that like Fiona had been built up as this sort of like charming like actress character. Because I was like, yeah, I don't know if anyone else would have pulled that off.
Yeah.
I love that. Like you're just expected to come to school with like injuries, and it was like, yeah, that's just how it be. What did we think of Fiona as a character? I quite liked her.
I really liked her. Yeah, I was glad that she kept, because at the start I liked her and I was a bit like, is she gonna like, you know, because she kind of seemed like a kind of you know, not a big character at the start, and I was thinking, oh, that's a nice character. I hope she comes off again. And I was like, yay, she does like stick throughout.
I think I mentioned at the beginning with family, but I also like that they get answers to their, you know, mission from Fiona's family, because Fiona's family has a connection to sort of prophecy readings and palm readings and all of these things, because her family is Filipino. And I love that element because again, like in a lot of these sort of not even like YA, but like in I mean like YA contemporary, like any sort of YA like chosen one or magical narrative, it's always like we have to do this on our own. Like the grown-ups can never find out. We're on our own, you know, friends. Let's go on an adventure. And I really liked the fact that like when faced with an issue, their first port of call is like, what do our immediate family know? Like, what can we glean from the people immediately around us? Because that's what you do. Like, if you have a problem when you're a teenager, you're like, how can my parents fix it? You know? Obviously, like it helped that Fiona's family was like versed in that stuff already. But I just quite liked that, the fact that, you know, there is a presence of the teens' families in the book, because so often that's just not the case, and it's just like we're running wild.
I really liked her like going to, you know, Fiona's. Was it like some sort of party or like a barbecue or something?
Yeah, it was like a
and
celebration.
they like steal the wine.
Mm.
and I like that scene
Yeah.
a lot. I hope we get like more of that kind of.
Yeah, I wonder if like now that Lily's back, if there'll be sort of not like jealousy, but like, you know, if Maeve has grown closer to Fiona and like maybe Maeve wants to
I
try and be
feel
closer with
like
Lily.
though like Maeve overall is quite like, obviously struggles with like jealousy and stuff,
Mm.
doesn't she? And I feel like you got the sense of it at the end that she was like being like, oh, I hope Fiona doesn't like, go off with Lily.
Yeah.
Because Lily kind of joined their kind of, they made a kind of like foursome at the end. And she seems, I mean, she
Well,
kind of
that makes
like,
sense because then if Ro and Maeve are a couple, then it just leaves sort of Lily and Fiona like,
yeah,
you know, as like two third wheel. So like it makes sense that they would hang out.
yeah.
Oh, poor Maeve. I was actually when I was looking on Goodreads, I saw a review that was like, oh, it wasn't a very complimentary review, so I didn't really agree with it. But they were like, oh, Maeve is supposed to be 16, but she sounds like a 12-year-old. Like she's so immature and selfish. And I was like, you never met a 16-year-old girl. Like,
Yeah.
of course she's
Exactly.
selfish. Of
Like,
course she's
that's
immature.
what I always felt with like in Buffy, like her younger sister, like Dawn. She was always like, everyone was always like, oh, she's so annoying, and I'm like, but that's kind of like the point, like, you know. You have to, I mean, you are still a kid at that age. You don't
Yeah.
like, and you're still like, you know, kind of your mind is still kind of growing, and
Mm.
you don't have like the emotional capacity quite yet to kind of think things through in the way that or find nuance and things.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I
yeah,
really like Maeve as a character. Um, I wanted to know more about Lily, and I think we will do in the
yeah,
next book. I
that
love the
was the
fact as
one.
well that she's an artist, and it was just like a little bit of a sort of
Yeah,
plot
she
twist as
seemed
well at
really
the end.
cool, and I like
Yeah,
wanted to know more about her. But I
yeah,
did kind of like the fact that she didn't like forgive Maeve at the end.
that's what I was gonna say,
That
and also that thing of like I wanted to be taken, that like she wasn't there against her will, like she
yeah,
was quite enjoying being a river for a bit.
yeah, yeah.
Cool.
But but the one thing is, I wish we just got more of like knew more about Lily, because I feel like that kind of ending where she was like, no, I'm not going to straight away forgive you. I feel like that would be more powerful if we saw a bit more of their like friendship before, because I feel like one thing that like annoyed me about May throughout is that they'd always be like, like a really serious moment, and they're talking about how obviously like Lily's like gone missing and it's like really tragic, and then she'd just be like in like her internal kind of dialogue just being like, Rose's eyelashes are so pretty, and I'm like,
But
your
mood
like
though.
childhood friend is like missing.
But also, like, in a way, isn't like the absence of Lily, because I guess she's only ever seen Ro with Lily there previously when they've been hanging out. So, like, it is the absence of Lily that allows her to like indulge in those thoughts for the first time.
Yeah, I
And then obviously
suppose so. Yeah.
there's a feeling of guilt attached to that because obviously, like, yeah, she's sort of enjoying an element of Lily being gone, which is the fact that she can now look at him in this new way. I don't know. That's what I got from it. Of like, ooh, like
Yeah, yeah.
we're
Oh,
alone for the first time, and I should be feeling bad about it, but I'm not.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, she was. She was very messy, and
yeah, yeah. Yeah, although I got annoyed at her at times, I was always like rooting for her, which I
definitely.
think is like quite a hard thing to do.
Yeah, and it's a hard balance, right? Because we say that we wanted to know more about Lily, but then maybe if we knew everything about Lily, we wouldn't be rooting for Lily to come back so much. Because like, I want her to come back because I want to find out more about her, you know. So it's like it's a tough balancing act, you know, if you're an author to be like, I want them to care about this character, but I don't want to give everything up right away, you know. Yeah. So I said that like I was going to say something there, and I did not. Oh, I guess the last sort of element of the plot, another sort of like piece of the puzzle. You know, in like Marvel movies when they're in front of like a screen and they've got like loads of different things, or like, you know, Sherlock, that really annoying scene where he's like figuring stuff out and he's like, so like another, if that was this book, another piece of it would be like the shopkeeper and the sister, right?
Yeah.
And who also went to the nun school.
Yeah.
That was a whole thing of like her clearing out the nun's car, finding the newspapers that led her to this Heather girl, finding out Heather was the sister of the witchy woman in the shop. And that, you know, there are some parallels between Maeve and Heather, and then Heather actually like died.
Is it Heather or is it? I can't remember. I know it's calls the sister calls her Heaven.
Yeah.
But it's something. But
her name is Heather Evans. That's why. So it's Heaven. I think it's Heather.
Yeah, but I wasn't sure if it was Heather.
Oh, hang on.
I remember it was something, obviously H, but maybe it was Heather. That was the one where I was like, oh, I should have like taken
Harriet.
Harriet, yeah.
It was so close. Of course it was fucking Harriet. We all knew a Harriet, didn't we? So it was a Harriet in a girls' school. Cannot be avoided. She's usually
the name of one of them in Wild Child.
Yeah, the head girl.
Yeah.
Our head girl was called Harriet as well.
It was called Harriet, yeah.
I've never met a Harriet outside of school though. Where do they go? Seriously. Because the Harriets in
they changed their name to like Heaven.
Yeah, well, maybe.
They're
like, they're high achievers in school, always the head girl, going places. Where do they go? Where are they? I've never met Harriet since I left school.
Yeah, I don't think I have either.
Exactly. They're hiding something. Oh, Hattie. Wow. Yeah, I can see that. Hattie's quite like a Tory name. We had a lot of Tory names at our school. Is Hattie short for Harriet though? I guess it could be. Yeah. Sorry, I'm going on a bit of a tangent. Anyway, so this girl, Harriet Evans, existed like, I want to say 30 years, but that's probably wrong. A good
like the 90s.
Yeah, it was the 90s. So yeah, like 30 years.
30 years, yeah.
Which I thought was actually really clever, because isn't there that theory of like the 30-year cycle where like nostalgia comes back?
Oh,
like
yeah,
30 years.
comes back.
So that's why in the last decade we got tons of 80s nostalgia with like Stranger Things and all that.
Now we're starting to
30 years. Yeah, because then when the people who were children in that decade are then in their 30s, and then they create media about the golden age, which was when they were children. So I quite liked that it was like that nice little parallel, because obviously when Maeve finds a tarot card, she finds the cassette tape which has all the 90s music on it, which belonged to Harriet. So I quite liked that. It was just like a little like detail that I thought was really sweet, like this sort of like nostalgia and romanticization almost of the past, and how we're like connected to it. But yeah, I did get a bit lost in the sort of political element of Harriet's story. So she was fighting for the right for women to get divorced, I believe, because that wasn't
Yeah,
legal at the time
yeah.
in Ireland. And basically, she wanted it so badly that she tried to do it with magic because it wasn't done properly through law. Like it was, turned down in the government. And so then she
Well,
tried to.
no, I think she wanted it because her father was abusive to her mother, and then I think the spell that she did was to kill her father, but she had to kill herself because it was a life for a life.
Right. Okay.
So I don't think it was to, you know, change the vote, but I think it was just to, because she had been campaigning for that
Right.
vote, but I think it was, the end spell was to get rid of her dad, so her
Okay.
mum and younger sister would be
Right. So then that's what gives
free
Lily,
from.
Maeve
Yeah,
the idea to sort of stab herself for Lily.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So do we think Harriet will come up again in book 2, or is that kind of put to rest now, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I think definitely her sister will, who works at
Mm,
the I've forgotten the name of the store.
me too.
Yeah.
Um, do we
Yeah, I
did
mean,
we
it might, I feel like it might be like something like, maybe, you know, they get together with, the sister and, have to take down, Aaron and stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited. I don't know why, but I pictured the witchy shop lady as Miriam Margolyes. I'm like, does anyone know? I have a full like cast of actors in my head when I read a book, and like sometimes
Yeah.
it's just quite funny because like I just picture who I picture, right? And then I don't even think about it, and then I you talk to other people, and like obviously like when you see this people do fan art, like who picture them completely differently, and you're like that's so weird. But in my head, the shop lady is Miriam Margolyes. Just thought I would share. And the cult guy is the guy from Disney Channel because my brain heard cult and then went straight to Disney Channel because that seemed like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
good
yeah.
fit. Um,
Well, maybe if there's a film,
maybe.
you could like email them and
I'm sure
say,
Miriam would be up for it. I don't know actually though because I read her memoir and that she wasn't into fantasy and that she didn't like Harry Potter very much, and that she fell asleep at both premieres of both films she was in. That she hasn't even seen them.
which ones was she in? She
She
was
was
in the
in the
second
second
one.
one and the last one.
Does she not come up in between?
No, that's she was pissed about that because she does in the books, but not in the
Yeah,
films. Um, but for like that tiny scene in the she had in the second film, she's in it for like 5 minutes,
yeah.
and she got paid £60,000 for that, which was probably
It's
more at
actually
the
less
time.
than I thought that
Is
she
it?
would. Because, yeah, well, you hear some people are in like 5 minute scenes and they get,
That's true.
a million.
Well, yeah, this was like 20 years ago, so
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but I just found that crazy because like oh, I'm obviously, like, I've only done, like, student films, but, like, to imagine the budget where, like, very minimal cast still gets paid in, like, the 50,000, that's crazy to me. Um,
Mhm.
anyway.
Well, no wonder she was pissed she didn't get any others.
Exactly,
She
yeah, I
was
would be
counting on that 60 grand.
Oh, Miriam. She's done quite well for herself, it's fine, she didn't need them anyway. It's all good. I wonder if she'll be at the reunion.
I think
Probably
she
not.
is, isn't she? I don't know.
No, they've not
Maybe.
announced her because, like,
Uh,
but maybe.
I know because there were so many names that came up like on the trailer. I just like didn't take it all in because I was like,
No,
oh,
she
it's
wasn't in there.
everyone.
Um, I'm trying to think of anything, any stone we've left unturned with this book. We could just ask people's overall opinion in the chat. What do you think of the book on the whole? I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because I liked the characters, I liked the way it was written, I love the representation and the witchiness and how all of these things were sort of happening at once. My only critique would be that my little brain sometimes was like, ah, but I think maybe had I known whilst reading that it was book 1 of 3, I would have relaxed a little bit and been like, oh, we're going to get answers to this later on. But I think what was
And
panic
also, I want
me
to
is that I
like,
had to remember all this stuff when I didn't.
yeah. I also like, I want to like, it made me think like, I want to learn more about like tarot cards.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do have some, but I
Mm.
just, haven't like read with them. Although I'm like now scared that I'm gonna get like a.
I was gonna say it's one of two things, isn't it? Like you're reading it, and you're like, oh, this would be really cool, and then like she stabbed herself. You're like, oh no, maybe I shouldn't do this.
Yeah. They are like beautiful objects.
Yeah, no, it just has like art. They're very good. Do you have the Dame Darcy ones?
Yeah, I've got 2 Dame Darcy, one Alice in Wonderland set and one Mermaid set.
It's
And then
very
she's actually got a 3rd one out, which is a witchy cat.
uh-huh.
But
But you're
I
not that person.
don't think I'm gonna get that one
Mm.
because
You heard it here first, lads.
I like it, but I just like, I feel like I've got, 2 is too many when I haven't like used them properly.
That's fair.
You know.
And they're expensive as well. So.
Yeah, it's not even just the like price of the set, it's the fact like shipping,
Yeah.
From the US.
Indeed.
I think I actually got one set from like a UK stockist, but it was like a bit of a nightmare. Like it didn't come for ages, and they were like, "Oh, it's lost."
Oh, was it Yodel?
It could have been actually, but it was like a shop, an online store which has like a lot of tarot cards.
Well, maybe by the time the sequel comes out, you'll be well versed in tarot and you can give me readings. That'll be exciting. But yeah, I don't know if we'll like read the sequel at some point for the book club, but obviously if we do, you guys will be the first to know.
We wanted to ask everyone if they had any like suggestions for next year.
Is anyone still here?
But
Hello.
if there are any suggestions,
throw us your recommendations.
Well appreciated.
Yeah, so we have some ideas. I think in the new year, I'll put up a video talking about our first 6 months. So that then, people are prepared and can buy anything that they need to buy for whatever month they want to participate in or get from the library or whatever. And yeah, I'm excited. We're gonna try and like be a little bit more prompt and communicative with like the live show times because I know it was a bit of a mess this year. But I've like for the first year of the book club, I think we did pretty well. Like looking back at our picks, I'll do like a proper little post about it on Twitter. But like we read some pretty banging books. Like
yeah,
I think 3 out of like 7 of them were like 5 stars for me. So that's a pretty good
and
ratio.
We did like quite a good like variety of stuff that I feel as well. Like we did some like horror stuff, some kind of more kind of real life kind of coming of age, and then non-fiction, YA. It's good.
Yeah. Proud of us. But yeah, looking back, I mean, I found some of my new favorite books now because of this book club. Cat's Eye, Hangs a Man, Pandora's Jar. Like, I've bought 2 copies of Pandora's Jar to, like, gift to people this Christmas because I'm like, "It's so good." You know, I'm
Ooh,
not
who
gonna
are you
say who.
gifting them to?
Well, I can probably say who because 'cause they're not watching. My mom, um, and Becca, because I don't think she'll watch this. That's no shade, I just don't think she has
Oh,
Oh, Sylvie. Yes,
mm,
I feel this as well. Like, a lot of the times in YA, I don't feel like there's any genuine threat with, like,
mm,
high stakes. Um, but I think in this one it was handled well because it was, like, threatening and mystical, but also sort of grounded at the same time, which I enjoyed.
mm.
Louise O'Neill, do tell. What do we know? Exciting. I need to read more Louise O'Neill because so B, do you know the Surface Breaks? It's that like mermaid
I've read it. I read it. I
yeah,
read
the
it.
little yeah. I was underwhelmed by it, but I think Louise
Yeah.
O'Neill's other books are a lot better. And I
Yeah,
trust
I
them.
didn't. I I can't even remember much about the Mermaid one, to be honest.
Yeah. I want to read After the Silence because that has a film element to it. It's about a documentary crew investigating a murder. So it's like film, but also like true crime. So ish.
Mm.
So it's like,
Oh, that is you.
I know.
Ooh,
Woman in a pool. That's all I need to
ooh.
know. I'm sold. We don't talk about the mermaid, but oh, it's like her books are all of her children, and the mermaid one is like the least favorite. It's the black sheep of the family.
Well, it's just also, I think we were both really excited for it, and
Yeah,
then it was just a bit of a letdown.
and also the cover is stunning. So every time I
Yeah.
see it on my
Well,
shelf, I'm
of
like,
the
ooh,
first hardback cover is stunning, but the new the paperback,
oh, oh yeah,
remember it? Isn't it like a photo and
yeah, it's a photo one. Yeah, because every time I pass it on my shelf, I'm like, ooh, beautiful. But then I'm like, oh. Mm. Anyway, have we rambled on enough? Oh, it is. It's disgusting, isn't it? I don't understand why it's so hard for YA novels to have nice covers. We don't want photographs. Like you look at middle grade covers and they're beautiful. They have like
Yeah,
paper cut holes in them. They
like
have
the
foiling. They've
foiled covers.
illustrations and they've got like the ribbon bookmark. Beautiful, beautiful things. And then YA, it's like here's a photo of a teenager. You're like, oh great, thanks. Mm.
It was not a very good font either on the the Surface Breaks one, I think.
I love that.
I
I mean,
think they
that's what series
spent their
does.
whole
Literally
budget
every
on the
time,
hardback.
literally every time we watch a film and like credits come up, Kirian will always go bad font. If it's like it's such a simple thing, but the second it's bad, you'll just notice it immediately.
Yeah.
Like when they changed going on such a like long time. When they changed the Agatha Christie from the little
Oh
mini
no, it's the
ones
font
to
bad.
the main paper, but they changed the font and like I'm not being funny, but so much of like the cozy, like comforting familiarity of those books was the bloody font because it was the same
I know
font
it
in
really
each
does
one.
make a difference.
It does,
I actually I got myself like years ago like a special edition of like Angela Carter the Bloody Chamber, and
oh, I have it.
I had to just give it away because the cover was lovely but the font is just
It's
tragic.
the vintage hardback, isn't it?
Yeah, and I just couldn't like.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, the All Our Hidden Gifts cover, I kept like seeing new things on it. And do you know what really freaked me out is that one night about like 3 a.m. when I was reading it, I suddenly noticed that the housekeeper is like
Yeah.
there on the cover. How freaky is that? I was just like
There
looking at it
is
like,
a
oh,
nice.
this is so
Also,
pretty.
it's at the back, isn't it, as well?
Oh my
Black
god,
and
yeah.
white.
Yeah. Why would you do that to me? I was freaked out. She's just like lurking in there.
Oh yeah, the cover is lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful. Like more YA needs to look like this. And like each of the things, it's like snow, and then the cup. Like these are all like different little towers. No, because like this is this the different powers that they have? I don't know. But that's like the
Yeah,
key that she gets cut on in the river.
yeah.
And that's
And
I'm
then that
guessing.
could be like Rose kind of
Yeah, power. I don't
fixing
know what the
thing.
cup is though. I guess that's
I have
just
to
like a
say, I was trying to work that. I don't think it's necessarily their powers, but I think it's just kind of semi-related because, like, the snow happens at both the points where Heaven and Maeve bring the housekeeper, and then this. What is the cup? I'm trying to think where a cup comes up.
Well, it's often in tarot, isn't it? It's like the cup is
Yeah.
filled or full or empty. Like the cups is a big deal. I say I don't know what I'm talking about. Fantasy does have the best covers. I really want the Illume Crate like Jade Legacy box. I really wanted that, even though I've never read any of the books, just because it was stunning. Thankfully, it sold out because it was £75, and I'm not paying £75 for it's trilogy, so it's 3 books.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, cups are a big deal.
Yeah.
9 of cups, 5 of cups, moon cups. No, it is a big deal. I think it's sort of like spades and like aces and shit when you get cards. Like when you get tarot cards, cups is one of the like 4 things that you can get a card in. I mean, cool. Is that to my moon cups comment? I was quite proud of it. Oh, I think I am losing it though a little bit. Right. Okay. Well, thank you, girls, for reading this book with us. Leanne, you've already read it, but Sylvie, thank you for reading this with us. And when the sequel comes out, we can all have a nice little chain mag about that as well. And I really appreciate you sticking with us because tonight was not our like peak performance.
Not our finest.
We didn't have our slides. We didn't have any sort of direction. It was just last day of term. Chill.
I also just got my booster yesterday, so I'm feeling a bit, frazzled.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, thank you for coming, keeping us company. Because without you, we're just shouting into the void, which is fun, but not ideal. But yeah, we will see you all in the new year, hopefully, and we're very excited to announce what we'll be reading for the first month of next year, and then all the months after that. So please do join us. This has been very rewarding and so much fun. So we hope you've been enjoying it too. Yeah.
And feel free to message or comment on Anna's videos if you have a suggestion as well.
Yes, please. We are always open. Anyway, we will let you go, and good night, everybody. Thank you so much for coming, and have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Yay! Bye.